Family. It's 8 o'clock. Y'all know what that means, right? It's time to talk. Big shout out to IMP. Again, if you're not a part of the MVP program, make sure you reach out to your rep. Make sure you join that program so you can take advantage of the benefits that it offers for being an MVP, most valuable partner. IMP. Big shout out to Knowledge of Nonsense. Again, as always, learn to listen so others are willing to talk. If you haven't got your copy, make sure you go get your copy. Make sure you see me so I can sign it for you. And let's keep the conversation going on active listening. Family, we've had a great season so far. I see so many people have taken advantage of the CEUs. I see so many people have reached out to me with questions, their comments, and what they're getting from the show. And for that, I want to say thank you. For everybody that's been here every week supporting. Again, I say thank you because not only am I doing this for me, I do this for you as well. I make sure that I want to make sure I acknowledge the fact that you are taking your time to be here with me to further these conversations and go on and actually educate others about what we've been talking about. This show is going to be a great show, but the reason I wanted to do this show is because I go across and I talk to all these people, and they always tell me that they feel like they're not seen. They feel like SPD doesn't, get a fair shake. They feel like people don't know what we do. And to all of that, I say, you're absolutely right. Even when I was a director, I realized that no matter what we did, nobody's going to understand what we do unless they come and see what we do. That's first and foremost. But how do you translate that to numbers on a piece of paper? How do you translate that to a C-suite that only deals in data? When I started looking into this, I wanted to, run up there with every, metric that I had just to say, hey, no, we're down here making a difference. We're part of the patient, safety initiative. We're doing all of these things. But the more I looked at it, I wanted to find out, are we even capturing the right things? When people get grouped into the peri-op space, when people get grouped into the, thank you, Jill. I can't wait to see you. When people get grouped into the peri-op space, and then they're trying to show what sterile processing is doing, a lot of times and we're going to get into this, but a lot of times they may say, hey, your metrics are based on OR minutes. Or they tell you there's only 6 cases on today. You don't need all your staff. How are they coming up with these numbers? How are these figures being, recorded to say that you're dictating how many people I need based on what numbers the ORs are doing? We still have to process all those trays. We have all of the clinics. We have equipment. Sometimes we have people doing rounds. There's so many different things that take place in sterile processing that people don't account for. So when we're talking metrics, are we actually capturing the right things? So that's what I wanted to talk about today. Are we giving the right data to the C-suite to say, hey, you need more FTEs, or hey, this is why this equipment is important, or this is why I need this? Are we capturing the right data? So I reached out to a friend of mine, and I wanted to have his take on what that means. How do we prove SPD's value based on metrics? So I wanted to just bring him in and just have a candid conversation about what they're doing, how they're doing, and what we can do to improve the processes about that. So without further ado, I want to bring in my good friend, Garland Grisby, so he can help me talk about metrics. Family, as we always do, welcome Garland to the channel, please.
What's going on, Kenneth? I appreciate you bringing me on, man.
Hey, brother, it's been a minute. I know we've been talking about doing this for a while. I wanted to make sure I could get the family to, hear your take on certain things and just have a candid conversation with my friend. So, what I wanted to do first for people who don't know Mr. Grisby, can you introduce yourself to the family, please?
All right. Well, I am Garland Grisby Sr. Um, I am a previous co-chair of Working Group 84 from Amy, the group that brought you the scope processing publication, and also I sit on a quite a few other Amy groups, and I also have my own podcast as well. I've been in the field for 22 plus years, and I've seen a lot, but I know I haven't seen it all.
Right. See, you just started something. So, family, y'all heard him say he was part of that group that brought y'all 108. So, if y'all got questions, he's the person to talk to because they've been blasting people about that 108. So, we might get into a little bit of that in a little while.
Man.
So, Garland, I've talked to you a bunch about stuff over the years. We've seen each other at conferences and stuff and just had genuinely a good time. So, just listening to you speak about certain things, I thought you would be a good person to come in today and talk about this. Let me ask you this right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Speak metrics. In relation to SPD, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind when we talk about, or when I think about metrics? Generally, folks, will just look at numbers, right?
Okay.
What are the numbers saying? And I used to think that way off top too, but over time, seeing it, right, metrics is more than just numbers for me. Right. To me, metrics is measuring the quality of what we putting out. Right. When I'm thinking of metrics, I was just talking to an executive director, and we talked about the metrics and first case on time starts and how that plays a role in SPD and how it trickles down to the OR. But then here we go, right? Talking about metrics and the OR. I said, what about first case on time starts for those clinics? So I think about not just the numbers, but what we're doing with those numbers or inside of those numbers.
I got some shout outs for you here. Jill says, Jay Garland is here. Carol says, oh, you're the guy from 108. She has a lot of questions. So you got people from Ohio. I saw Jill's in Atlanta. So it's going to be rolling in. They coming, sir. They coming. They hear. So her first question was, how do we give the C-suite data that makes them want to come see the important work going on in SPD?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I would say is you have to reverse engineer, right? And what I mean by that is, and what I've done is I've reached out to the folks in the C-suite, the different folks that we touch, right? And what have I said to them? Hey, look, let me sit in on some of your procedures. Let me see how your day-to-day operations go so I can understand what's going on in your world, right? Because then once we give them the idea that we actually care about what's going on in their world, then they're more inclined to be like, okay, well, how about we come and we see what's going on in your world in SPD. And I actually just did that actually with a department because they just thought, and I hate when people say this, but the lady said it. She said, "Oh, you're the folks that wash our dishes."
Yeah, that drives me crazy. That drives me crazy.
I looked at her. I looked at her for about 10 seconds before I said something, and I said, "You're instruments for patient care." And so I told her, I said, hey, let me come and see your setup. Let me see how you start your day. Let me see, what type of barriers get in the way. And then she was shocked. She said, nobody's ever done that. And then she says, would it be okay if I came to sterile processing?
Right.
I said, absolutely. I said, it would be okay for you to come, for your director to come, and for some of your staff to come, so they can have a better idea of what's involved. And when she left, she was shocked and amazed at what it actually takes to get one instrument set back to her.
You got everybody saying, not the dishwasher reference, not the dishes again. Like, we don't want to hear that at all. So, yeah, that's just, yeah, we don't want to do that. That dishwasher reference kills them every time.
Right.
I guess Sean is saying here, it's an average of $62 per minute amid multiple academic studies recently affirmed in 2023. If just 5 OR cases are delayed per day due to SPD inefficiencies, 15 minutes each, that's about $4,650 a day loss based on those metrics and what they're saying. So when you talked about that, I heard you say it, and it's a point that people don't really understand. But when you said first case on time rates, they don't understand that we do play a big part in that.
Major part.
So when it comes to those metrics, are we tracking that? Are we even tracking the first case on time starts? Is that something from an SPD's perspective? I know it does happen from an OR perspective. And when I was a director, I actually was in the OR to make sure that the first cases were going off without a hitch. But
Yep.
I know a lot of people don't do that. So from that perspective, how do you measure, or how do you track the first time on case starts?
So, number one for me, similar to you, I meet with my OR folks regularly to make sure everything is ready to go. I actually meet with them every morning at 6:30. Right before anything happens, we talk about what's available, what's not available, and we also discuss when we got those pick lists, right? Those preference cards, and how long it actually took for my folks to get those up and going, right? So, but as far as capturing it, how I would like to capture it, we're not there yet.
Okay.
But we're trying to get to the point where there's just this clean process across the board, from like a order. If you order something off the internet, something that you want some clothes, you want some food, you order it. You got a timestamp from when they placed the order or when they gave us the pick list, and that's stamped. We got the time from the moment we started picking it to the time that we were finished, right? That's ultimately the goal that I have, just solely for case cards.
Okay. And that ensures that the case cards are delivered in a timely fashion, because from point A to B what it took to get you there.
Absolutely.
Okay. So another thing that I know that you allude to, what about trade turnaround times? How those metrics play a part in that that proving our value per se? How does the actual trade turnaround times? Like, I know that some people are short instrumentation, inventory is not where they want it to be, and sometimes you are using trays from day to day to day to day to day, so there's nothing that's actually sitting.
Yeah. So yeah, this has been yeah, I had to take a deep breath on that one, right?
Okay, let me get your breath, but let me show you. Angela, thank you for being here, but I still a lot of stuff coming in. People got stuff for you, so I want to make sure we hit everybody here. Angela says daily case card audits and recording the data within your tracking system is a great way to track progress and trends.
Absolutely.
It was a wonderful idea. I think having routine in-depth tours make a difference as well. Like you said, if you're talking to the staff before they even get to the rooms and you're making sure that everything is in place, you're making that happen. That's actually having a routine in place where everybody's involved.
Yeah.
Jill says she loved that you say you haven't seen it all. That's a great attitude to have, because none of us, I think we had a off-book conversation that said, like, at the end of the day, we're subject matter experts, but are we really? Because we're still learning everything. So,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? So we're going to get into that later, though. We're going to talk about that. Jill says, Garland Grisby, how do you get the data down to the technician level to make more of an impact? Ooh.
Down to the technician level, right?
Yes.
So for me, in the tracking system we use, you can see what an employee actually did, right? And what I've been doing lately is coming up with, a tray time, right? An average time it takes to do certain trays, be that scopes or minor sets to your more difficult sets. And so whatever an employee is doing, I can see what they did and what they didn't do. I can see how long they were on a particular tray, right?
Right.
And then I can tie back. And then sometimes it's worth that conversation, tracking it back down to the technician.
So in saying that, and I was going to get into this a little later, but we are there now. Productivity per se. If we are tracking the average times that it takes you, that it takes them to do a tray, do we account for the phone ringing, the doorbell, the assist to the OR,
No.
opening the sterilizer, emptying the cart washer? So when they get pulled away from their station, is that a true metric of what they were doing if all those other things still have to happen?
Under no circumstance. I would say under no circumstance. And I'm saying that, and that's me saying it, right?
Okay.
Because when we, again, so if I'm on a tray, now some folks may think this is too much, right? If I'm on a tray, but I'm the person responsible also for answering the phone and running up to the OR, that means I had to stop doing what I was doing, right? But you can also have a scan point that you actually stop doing that task to do another task. From your start, okay, I'm starting here, I'm pausing it, now I'm starting another task, and this is when I finish the other task.
Okay.
But then again, this is where low staffing comes into play, right? Because the reality of the matter is, and this is me talking, I don't feel that a person that is setting trays should be the same person that's answering the phone and running up to the OR.
Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know what? That's a very interesting point, and we're going to elaborate on that right after this commercial.
Trusted equipment, backed by service. Safer patient outcomes begin with the right equipment and the right partner behind it. That's why we created the MVP program, our commitment to being your most valuable partner in every procedure. When you start using IMP patient protective pads or SteriBump, our sterile surgical bump, you unlock more than just great products. You gain discounted repairs to keep costs down, free loaner equipment to keep you up and running, product discounts to maximize your investment, a 1-year new product warranty, and the exceptional service and support you've come to rely on, delivered by a team that's with you every step of the way. It's more than just a service plan. It's our commitment to stand behind you with best-in-class support, because reliable equipment means safer outcomes for your patients. That's the MVP standard. It's service when you need it, support that's seamless, and protection that's built in so you can focus on what matters most, patient safety. Talk to your IMP representative or visit impmedical.com/MVP to become an MVP today. Because when you invest in IMP, we invest in you.
Again, I know y'all saw that IMP MVP program. When you invest in IMP, they invest in you. If you haven't talked to your rep, definitely talk to your rep and become that most valuable partner. I want to go back to a couple of things, but I want to give Garland a chance to elaborate on some things. People probably looking at the TV like, what did he say? Now, I understand the concept. But when you are, say you're short-staffed, or say, we're just going to say short-staffed, and everybody's doing everything, how do we keep that person on the table, per se, to only focus on trays when everybody's helping out everywhere?
Therein lies the problem, and that's why we're having this discussion about metrics.
Okay.
Right? Because you think I see it all the time, right? It doesn't matter where I go. It doesn't matter what facility I step in, right? I'm sure you've seen it. If you just sit back and watch, somebody may be working on a tray that is needed. That's a turnover. But then they're also the only person that may be right there at the time, but then they have to go and grab something that's also needed right now. So again, this is where these metrics come into play. This is where this data comes into play so that we can tell the true story of what's absolutely needed in our world. Because we don't have what we need.
So what you said was about the scan points. I want you to go into that a little bit because I know that people understand what you mean, but just go into what that really looks like. So in an SPM, Census Track, all these tracking systems, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have, and I know you alluded to it, like, so when you're building your inventory, every tray is assigned a time for processing.
Right.
So let's just say a minor tray has a 15-minute, take you 15 minutes to put it together. Let's say, I'm being generous, I'll say 15 minutes, right? So person got this minor set, they got it on their table, they scan it, it starts the timer. They've got all this stuff assembled, got all this stuff separated, they're checking, phone rings. The only one here, I pause the tray, scan, I'm doing the phone, or scan, I'm going to the door, so that that productivity is still captured.
Yep.
So now they go do whatever that task is, whether it's go run something to the OR, something else they need, or they go to the door to help the clinic that needs their stuff, come back, unpause the tray's still going. So now when you get your report, you'll be like, hey, why did it take you 45 minutes to do a tray that should have took you 15 minutes? But you can see all these other scans in there. Yep. How does that translate to something that you can take to the C-suite and say, hey, I need more people?
Well, over time, or what you can do is you can capture those different scans and you can tie them down to the minute of, okay, say, for example, here's the month of August, right? This was the number of minutes that was taken to actually deal with just phone calls. Okay. This is the actual down to the minutes that it took for us to go run up and drop off something upstairs or drop it off downstairs, wherever you may be taking it. So then you show this was what we've done. You compare it to what we could have done, and you can also track the deficiencies that happened in there. So because I had to step away from this was delayed because they needed this turnover. But I had to step away for the turnover because the patient is on the table now.
So is that what plays into what we were talking about previous to this question? We were talking about trade turnaround times and things like that. I think we got away from that, but now we're talking totality is now these trays are being turned around, and the total process of receiving it, decontaminate it, assemble it, sterilize it, all of these things still have to happen.
Yep.
Now, all these other ancillary things are taking place along the way that says, hey, these minutes were spent over there, those minutes spent over there. What do we do? How do you, I mean, the C-suite is going to look at that and be like, so what does that mean?
They're going to ask, what does that mean? And you have to break it down, right? Again, what I've done, I've invited some to come to in-services, okay. Right? For example, just had an in-service on instrument pan inspection. Folks were shocked to see what actually is part of the inspection, inspecting the sterilization container that the instruments go in. See, we just think about the instruments themselves. We don't even think about the retention plates, right? We don't think about the locks. We don't think about that other stuff, or some folks don't think about that other stuff. And so when they see it, it's a completely different ball game. Even when nurses in the OR who've been nurses forever, when they see what actually should happen with something so basic as a sterilization container, you see the time that it takes to actually go into just that one thing, right? And then we also tie in the complaints, because there's always going to be a complaint. And you see what, for example, how many staff did you have that day? How many cases? How much throughput and capacity did we have? What did we push out? And were there any deficiencies? Yes, there were deficiencies. Why? Well, because we were rushed. We didn't get to inspect these instruments. We didn't get to inspect to see if it was sharp, that the scissors were sharp. Things like that. All of that stuff, when you get to show them what goes into what we do, is, you know.
You got a lot of good stuff happening here. So I just want to get to a lot of these. This LinkedIn user was talking to Jill, which says, when they researched a contributing factor to my text errors, the phone was a big one. So they stopped assigning the phone to text on assembly, and error rate started improving. To your point of when you're pulling people away from stuff, you start seeing those errors. I like that. They actually tracked what it looks like when the person was on with the phone and then without the phone. Katie, thank you. Tiffany says gaskets are notoriously ignored in my experience. You're right. If people are doing inspections, if they're not doing those inspections, you forget about the gaskets. Real trick trying to get that tray up. Simone says scan the minor tray. Phone rings. Room is calling. Phone rings. A vendor dropping off trays. Washer open up. You have to empty the washer. Now the cart washer cycle ends. You need to empty that, and so on and so on. So wow, like all these things are definitely happening, and you're still trying to assemble that tray that they need for a later case. Carol says the data is only good as the scans that are captured. How do you motivate staff to ensure they are doing all these scans to capture this? As I would get the excuse, we don't have time to scan everything. Woo, there you go. How do you motivate the staff to actually scan when you're trying to capture this data?
So what I've done, it's number one, we gotta like empathize with them, right? You gotta help staff to understand that hey, look, I know what you're going through. I've been there, right? Just because you're a leader or whatever, it doesn't matter. You still been there. You know the struggle. But when we talk about, or when I talk to staff about, oh, it's too much scanning, it's too much this, I say, what are you worth? What are you worth? I said, are you worth the conversation asking you what happened with this block of time that you weren't there? Or are you worth the conversation for somebody to give you kudos because you scanned everything that you needed to scan and you did outstanding work?
Nice.
And then I also show them, I say, hey, look, this is what I have to answer for every week, our staffing. I have to answer for them to tell us that we're over by 6 full-time employees. Under no circumstance are we over by 6 full-time employees. I said, this is why scanning is important. And then their minds start going off and they like, well, wait a minute, you know what? We don't ever capture when we have to go clean the scope cabinets. We don't ever get to capture when we are doing the sterilizer cleaning, or when we are calling for vendor service because the sterilizer is broke or the washers are down, or when we troubleshooting. I said, aha. I said, this is exactly why it's important for you to scan. I said, scan what you do. I said, if you don't scan what you do, then I'm gonna think you did nothing. And so are they. I said, because they get the same numbers that we get. I said, except for them, they're worried about the bottom line and they're worried about the dollars, and they have to make sure that the dollars make sense. And if there's these blocks of nothing on our time, then they're gonna say, what are you here for?
Jake says, scan what you can. You got to scan what you can. So I'm asking, Angela says, learning to access and utilize the available reports in your tracking system is important. Most companies offer leadership training to teach those things. So I heard you say something there, so I want to get to that. And I know a lot of people out there, I was a director who this was what it was until I had it changed. What happens when your productivity is tied to OR minutes and not what you're actually doing in your department? I see you shaking your head, so that means I need to take a commercial, because when I come back, you're gonna have something good for me. So right after the commercial, we're gonna talk about what happens when the actual SPD's productivity is tied to OR minutes instead of tangible things that actually is being done. So right after the commercial.
In a world overflowing with noise, are you truly being heard? Or better yet, are you truly listening? Kenneth Campbell, industry author and expert in sterilization, is back with his latest book, Learn to Listen, so others are willing to talk. This book isn't just about hearing words. It's about understanding, connecting, and building trust. Whether you're leading a team, navigating relationships, or simply striving for better conversations, these practical strategies will transform the way you communicate. Imagine a world where every conversation leads to deeper connections, resolved conflicts, and greater influence. It's possible when you learn to listen. Are you ready to elevate your communication and create meaningful relationships? Learn to listen so others are willing to talk. Available now.
Well, I've been thinking about this for a minute, and that is one of those things that happen when you think about when people tie our productivity to the number of cases in the OR versus you've had the throughput that you've had. How do you get them to see that piece? How do you get them to change their thought process in that way?
So the problem is nationwide, right?
Oh,
It,
okay.
it's nationwide, right? You saw the what was put in the chat a little while ago, the post from Sean Flynn, right? That was excellent information, right? They're using data from years ago to support this notion of what it really takes to have a efficient SPD, right? And again, it continues to tie back to OR hours. And okay, that was fine when you had all of the clinics and the C-suite folks processing their own stuff or thinking they were processing their own stuff.
Right.
That was great when they had those tabletop sterilizers, and we never saw it, right? We never saw it in SPD. But then here comes the future. Nope, this is wrong. This needs to go to the experts, right? Here we are. We're the experts. So the work kept piling up,
right?
But the staff didn't. And so here we are. What I've done is I don't like to come in hot because, when you talk about money and, everybody get touchy about money and you tell them we need more. And they're like, okay, yeah, we hear you. But I like to work with like directors and executive directors above me because I need them to understand that if we fail to provide what they need, then every case that we have is going to be delayed.
Right.
It's more than just having a sufficient amount of inventory. You need a sufficient amount of staff to support that inventory so that we don't have to rush. So what I do is I have those conversations. I have those real conversations. And my thing is I tell them, I need you to have time so I can explain this to you.
Right.
I just had a meeting about a month ago with 2 execs, and one was real technical and they wanted everything down to the minute detail. And the other one said, I don't want to hear all of the fluff. Tell me what it means. Dumb it down for me. And I did it. And he said, that makes sense. Right. So it all depends on who your audience is, who you're talking to, and the data that you're trying to provide to them. Right. You can have all of this elaborate data when all you need to tell them is it takes 30 minutes to do this task, touch time. This is how long it takes in the sterilizer. But while this is in the sterilizer, they're also setting other trays. Right. And this is what we need. So it all depends on who you're talking to and the information that you're trying to convey.
Right. I got a bunch of stuff here for you. I saw Tandria, thank you for being here. I saw you in there. Angela says data is everything. Right. She said that not only does data show productivity, but it also creates the logs and documentation. So we do have things to stand on. Tandria said, add that function in your tracking system, and that way it helps you keep track of how many FTEs you always need. That's why those scan points are important in your area, are very important. We were like that. Now we don't do that. We service our OR and it's 74 clinics as well. So these are Carol says, so true. New instruments and equipment are purchased without consulting SPD to see if we actually have the capability and capacity to process it. So these are those things. Simone, delays are not the only thing that will happen. What about trays that are not processed properly because of staff shortage? So when we're talking metrics, and this is what this whole episode is geared upon. When we're talking metrics and we're talking proving SPD's value, are we capturing the right things? Like he said, you're talking OR minutes. Okay, yes, you had 8 cases and you say I'm overstaffed, but do you realize the amount of work that is going in to get all those trays back up? You're not looking at what it takes to do the trays. You're looking at you only had this many cases, so we don't need this many people. And that's not a metric. That's a good metric to judge it by. So what do we do in that case? I want to just throw some things out there to you, Garland. I know that we talked about a few of these, like instrument error rates, right? Tray instrument utilization rates, rework rates, case delay incidents that are linked to SPD, sterilizer recalls, employee productivity we've been talking about. How about compliance with IFUs? And I know that people don't understand that if I was to follow the IFU to the letter of the law, how much work would they truly get done? And I'm not saying people aren't. Yes, I am. I'm saying that people, I'm saying that when you're talking about following the IFU to the highest level that you can follow it, would your productivity still stand to be what y'all think it is today? Tandreas, it went away real quick.
Was you asking me? Because I was going out the people.
Okay. You want to go? Yeah. If you follow,
No, let the people.
I'll give it to you. But I was trying to get the comments in. I give it.
Yeah, let the people do it. Let the people go.
Angela said one case can take 2 sets, another case can take 20 sets. So you're talking about 6 cases, but that case only had 2 trays. That case had 20 trays. Is it the same? How do you do that? Tandrea says, invite your VP, CCO, CFO, directors to your department to do a full walkthrough of the whole department, and that helps them understand what we do and what it takes to keep all those other areas running smoothly. Again, these are the things that we're seeing. These are the things that are actually being done every day. Simone, delays in patient safety. Yes, when we're not doing things correctly, and just say, ooh, the IFUs. But yeah, that is where this all leads to. When we're talking productivity, when we're talking metrics, when we're talking what it actually takes to get trays done, are we doing everything correctly? 1, 2, are we measuring the right things? That's where this comes in at. We're having some technical difficulty, but we're still here because this is a great conversation. I like all the comments that are coming through because that lets me know that y'all are actually paying attention to what is happening in your departments as well. But, I'm going to give this a chance for that to soak in. We're going to take a commercial and I'll be right back.
Do you want greater success and satisfaction in your career? Do you have ideas that you desire to contribute? Then it's time to invest in you. Imagine you building and managing a high-performance team, managing conflict and difficult conversations, understanding financial management and budgeting, creating and implementing strategic plans, building and maintaining relationships with stakeholders. Our programs are designed and tailored for individuals seeking to grow and succeed in their leadership roles. UCDI's Change the Narrative Progressive Leadership is a mid-level leadership program designed specifically to develop the skills and knowledge necessary to take on greater leadership responsibilities in a sustainably scalable format. So, if you're tired of seeing ineffective processes, unhealthy work distribution, lack of follow-through and accountability, and you want to be an answer for yourself and for your team, then this is the program for you. Contact UCDI Leadership at info@ucdileadership.com or text LEADERSHIP to 214-717-5921. The future depends on many things, but mostly it depends on you.
You saw that. If you have some issues or things you want to correct with leadership, or you want to get more education to your leadership, more training for your leadership team, definitely call UCDI and let the people at UCDI help you take your staff to the next level. Garland is still here, y'all. He's still here. He's in the audio, so he can actually still comment on the comments and stuff that are happening. So I want to just bring that back around, Garland. When we're talking about all of these things that could potentially, affect sterile processing productivity and the metrics that we're being tracked. We talk about all of those little things from, as you said, case carts being done on time and being taken to the OR on time so that they can have an on-time start, to down to the minute level of, are we following an IFU, right? So in that sense, how do we get other people, and I know you keep talking about it, how do we get other people to see what you see and understand it? And I know you said sometimes it's plain language, but sometimes it's not. How do we break that down for everybody?
You can hear me all right, right?
Yes, we got you.
Okay. So I remember somebody put in the chat a while ago how clinics or departments will order instruments and won't say nothing.
Right.
I think what has to happen is these conversations need to happen on a large scale and not just, I mean, we always get forgotten about until everything has arrived in the facility and they say, here you go. We need you guys to process this. But I think if these end users actually knew what was involved before they purchased, then they would have a different perspective. And then they also can vouch for us, right? And what we need. So many times I talk to vendors and I'm like, did you talk to the end users? Did you tell them, what's expected of them? Even something as simple as point of use, right? Which makes our job easier. No, I didn't do that. We didn't have that discussion. Well, that's where the problem comes in, right? And even if we stretch back and just talk about the OR, they also have instruments that they're using that were purchased, that they were never told how to use them and what is actually involved in them being able to get a product that's ready for patient use. So it's a huge discussion that just needs to be had from the initial idea of a physician or someone going to an event, a conference where they see this new technology that they want to bring on site. When they come back home and bring the idea up, the key is for them not to just purchase it and say, bring it here, I want it. The key should spark conversation. Hey, this is what I want. And they say, okay, well, here is everybody that needs to be involved in this discussion before anything is brought in here, even the trial.
Right. And then we get left out of that a lot of times, right? Like they don't consult you to say, do we even have the proper technique to sterilize things? Do we have the capacity to wash things and decontaminate things? Like when we're left out of those conversations, that makes our job so much harder, but they still want you to make it work.
Yeah, I actually dealt with that a couple of years ago. The doctor was adamant.
I've seen that after the fact too.
They get this equipment, and one doctor they spent $600,000, $600,000 on some instruments. They brought them in there. I said, we can't process them. They said, why? You're sterile processing. I said, correct. I said, but what you did was you bought something without having a conversation first. I said, the sterilization modalities that they have are null and void here. I said, this technology is no longer out. We don't have that sterilization modality. And that's that. Oh, well, another, and then they'll say, well, another facility does it. I don't care what another facility does. I'm in my house, you're in my house, and the patients that we see are going to be affected by what we put out. And you're not going to stand there and go to court with me when I have to answer why we did it.
Right. And that's important for everybody to understand that it is your house. You do get to have a say so in these type of conversations. We just have to be willing to do so. So that brings up my next thing that I just want to have you touch on for everybody real quick. At the same time, hey, in the comments, we do have the link for tonight's quiz. Make sure you grab that quiz. Make sure you bookmark it, save it so that you can get your CEU after this. Garland is here to make sure that we give you the information you need for that CEU. Make sure you get that CEU. And also get the phones ready for the people that, would need the QR code at the end. Tadria says they bring us in the conversation after they messed up something. And we have to be the true cleanup team. And she's absolutely right. I've had that happen with scopes. And they brought them and said, hey, can you process this scope? And the answer is no.
No.
This is simply no. It's not, we're not going to go create a new, as you say, the new modality just because you bought a scope without consulting somebody.
Right.
But to my point, I was about to say, just so we could, get people, the information they need here. How can a sterile processing leader translate that complex data? We talked about so many different things. How can they translate all that complex data, like defect rates or turnaround times, into a story that the executives and clinical teams can understand and truly act on?
Real life stories. Life stories. And what I mean by that is there's so many real life stories out there. Even if you talk to some of the nurses, right? You talk to some of the physicians, you ask them why are you a nurse? Why are you a doctor? And some of the conversation that you hear is, well, this is what happened to somebody that I love. They went into a place and they went in for a procedure and it didn't turn out right. Not because, just something went wrong. No, but they got an infection. And I wanted to do all that I could to make sure that that doesn't happen to somebody else. When you make it personal and put them in the picture, then they can understand the data, right? You can ask them, do you like to wait for anything? Even at a restaurant, do you like to wait? Now, if you're having fun, that's one thing, but do you like to wait? No, when you order food because you're hungry, you want your food. If you're sitting there waiting too long, you get angry, you might get up and leave, right? So the same applies to what we do and what we need, right? If you have a packed restaurant, but one chef that's making the desserts, the main course, and bringing the dishes out to the table, everybody's going to wait, right?
Right.
So it goes with SPD. You have a packed house, meaning you have a packed schedule of OR cases, clinic cases, but you only have 2 people running the show. So somebody's going to wait.
Right.
So I've used illustrations like what can make this group get the point outside of these numbers, because you mentioned a little while ago, like if you really looked at what we should be doing, if we looked at these IFUs, have mercy. Everybody would have 100 SPD technicians, right? At the least.
Right.
But when you look at all of those IFUs and what we should be doing, it's a completely different story. They would never believe those numbers. They would never believe down to the minute of how long it takes to do something, right? Because they don't even understand. Like if I talk to them about scopes, they're like, oh, well, that head and neck department only does 35 scopes a day. I said, only 35 scopes a day. I said, okay, we have one sink that we have to process those in. Right. You can do only one scope at a time. That scope takes about 30 minutes to 45 minutes of touch time, depending on the scope. Right. Then you have to disinfect the sink in between use. I said, so there's all these things that we're not capturing that we don't talk about.
I think that's absolutely the piece that you're saying, though. Like when you're talking and you're making it personal and you're bringing up these facts that people don't understand, even down to like the people in the OR, they'll send you a tray down on decon and call you 2 minutes later and ask you, is it ready? They just don't understand what it takes to get these things done. So when we're talking about metrics and we're talking about capturing data, isn't that part of it? Like if you're not even doing the pre-cleaning, is that a metric that we should be capturing? Y'all ain't even pre-cleaning, but you want me to turn a tray over quickly. Now I gotta let it soak. I gotta let it do all these things. So all of these things do make a difference. So that's where I'm trying to take this, is that when we're talking about capturing things, is everybody capturing the pre-cleans in decon? do we have a scan for that, or do we have them tracking what trays come down pre-clean?
Yep.
That's the metric that should be captured.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Those type of things.
Yes.
You had a bunch of comments, and I want to make sure we get to those. But yes, breaking that down, I like what you said, though. You make it put a personal spin on it so that they understand that this is coming from a real place, not just, what I read in a book. Like, no, we're all affected by this, because I could be a patient one day, so I want to make sure we're doing stuff right. So that kind of stuff. But I'm gonna get to some of these, and then I got a couple more things before we get out of here. Carol says they will add whole OR teams to cover cases, and SPD gets no additional staff for help.
You ain't
Absolutely.
Yes.
I get that one. I see that one all the time. Angela says our C-suite really responded to translating the data into dollars and how it would make a positive impact. That went away. How it would make a positive impact. She said that also they ordered some sets for. See, now my people messing with me. They make a positive impact. The end result of patient outcomes. And then another one, she said, we ordered the sets for Dr. Awesome. They'll be here tomorrow. He needs them on Friday. They brought them to you just that quick and want you to turn them around and do them, and they don't even know if you could process.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Right.
Tandrea had actually said something a little while ago. If it all circles back, y'all, I'll make sure I get all your comments in. I do appreciate y'all all being here again. Tandrea said, that's right. Don't let no one come in your house and tell you how to run your house. And that's absolutely the thing that we have to try to keep we're doing. Nicole showed up. Hi, Nicole. Thank you for being here. She says, great topic. Yes. So that's that, right? So this one is one of those where you get to put your hat on and you become the standard, right? Mm-hmm. So if you could add one new standardized metric across all hospitals to showcase SPD performance, what would it be? And how would it improve collaboration across the perioperative team?
I need you to repeat that one more time.
If you could add one new standardized metric across all hospital systems to showcase SPD performance, what would it be? And how would it improve collaboration across the perioperative team?
I would add the capturing of any and everything that we touch in SPD.
Okay.
Not OR minutes, not OR cases. What do we touch in SPD? Anything that we touch, whether it's case carts, crash carts, equipment cleaning, whatever it is that we may be doing in our facility should be captured. And then those conversations should happen, or that collaboration could happen, right? Because I'm saying that because I actually watched it happen. I watched it happen. And it played out so nice. It was rough at first because nobody agreed.
Right.
But we did a small test of change, and they have not looked back ever since. Neither side, neither the OR, because the OR was just worried about the OR. And the C-suite folks, they had their arguments, because the reality of the matter is you're not going to have a patient in the OR if they're not seen in the C-suite. Right? So there has to be that collaboration. And so I would just add capturing everything.
Now, what about people who say we do capture everything from, and again, it's going to come down to what are we actually calling capturing, right? I think that's the biggest part of this whole thing when we're talking about proving what the data means. How long does it take to clean an IV pole? How long does it take to clean a pump? Okay, back to the case cards. You're putting case cards together, but every case card isn't built equally. So that means that it may take me longer to pull that total joint than it does for that cysto case. So what is the true metrics that we're counting to get us to that point of we need more people? That's the biggest part about this thing is the metrics prove your need for FTEs. The metrics prove that you're doing what you can do in your department with what you have, but you need more. So Tandrea says it works. We do that. When they for real, they capture everything. So you do have people that does it.
Yeah.
I mean, there are departments that truly capture everything. My point of that is saying when we're talking about, and I remember a stat that came out, it was like what it takes. You may remember, was it what 10 pill packs equal one tray?
Yeah, I think it was.
Something similar to that, but is that a true statement? Like you said, like, so what are we capturing to say we need more people? I like what you said though. We capture everything and we can paint a complete picture. Does that give us the standing we need with anybody to say this is what we're doing, this is what we need, and this is how we can fix it? So to your point, it will drive collaboration when they realize they're not going to get that turnover back because I only got 2 people in the department. One of them is in decon, the other one running clinics, and that tray is sitting downstairs. Are they still going to say, well, we only have 1 case on the schedule. You have too many people down there. Is that still going to be the conversation at that moment?
No, because I actually, they may try because they're looking from their own view, right? They're looking at what they need. When you focus on what you need only, you don't care about nobody else, right? You only care about your patient at that moment. And rightly so. You're supposed to, because if I'm your patient, I want you to care about me too.
Right.
But at the same time, same thing, right? I just had an issue with, well, it wasn't an issue. It was weird to me because it was weird. We only had 9 cases. And I was shocked. I said, this don't make no sense. I've never heard of this before, right? And we're far more busier than that. And so I said, 9 cases. Well, what we gonna do? The higher up said, well, you can start sending people home. That's exactly what they told me.
I've had that conversation. I know that does happen.
You can send people home. I said, I don't automatically just send people home because there's other things in this department that we can do that we don't get credit for, but we will sure get cited for.
Ooh. Oh, we brought the cited in. Okay, I got you. I see where you're headed. I see where you're going. I see where you're going.
There's things that you won't get credit for, but you will get cited for if it's not done. Right. And so they just looked at me and I said, yeah, it's work to be done in here. I said, does that mean that we need to be fully staffed? Absolutely not. But there's stuff that we can do that we don't have time to do on a day-to-day basis. We should, right? In the chat, QA trays. How often are people doing that? Do you have time to do it? Right? Do you have time to go look for the expired stuff or stuff that's about to expire because the wrap manufacturer says only a year, is no longer, event related, right? Where's that being captured at?
Ooh.
Right? I'm searching for, I'm saying it because every month I get a list of this is about to expire. This is about to expire. So my folks have to go pull it. Then they wasn't getting credit for it. I said, oh, you're getting credit for it now? Right, we don't have to stand. This is going to be your assignment. You're going to get credit for pulling these 50 trays.
Right. Hey, chat, the QR code is on the screen. Make sure you get your QR code. Make sure you get the CE for this episode. This has been a great episode. Make sure you are logging in and getting those CEs. They add the benefit to you because I know we all need CEs, right? So make sure you get your CEs. Go back, do the other episodes. If you haven't done them, get the CEs for that. We've had some good engagement through all the CEs, but I just want to make sure that y'all are capturing the value that y'all get from being here tonight. And I appreciate you all being here. Garland, on that same note, right? I get that point, but let's just educate, a little bit further. Let me take it a step further here. What are some of the most common mistakes departments make when choosing which metrics to actually report?
Common mistakes. The basics. I say folks go with the basics. Okay. And it's not a hit on the people. It's whatever system folks are using, right?
Okay.
And whatever tracking system folks are using. They come in, the tracking system folks come in and they train you to do here. This is what you do. This is what you scan, right? And it's the basics. But if we had a true layout that was across the board, right? Say we got all these guidelines and these guideline groups out there. But if there was something out there that said, hey, listen, all of this needs to be captured because this is all of what you do. And then from there, those tracking system folks can make sure all of that is already embedded in the system. So you don't have to worry about it, because the reality is the tracking system is only as good as the information that you put in there. And I'm not talking about what was said earlier about it's only as good as what you scan. I'm talking about it's only as good as what you put in there. If you don't have a scan for that, you're not getting credit. And if you don't know how to add a scan for that, then you're definitely not getting credit.
So some of the mistakes could be that we're not even set up for success from the beginning.
Correct.
Like if we don't put the stuff in there, like you're right. If we don't have a door scan or a phone scan, it's just if you don't have those things, you can't capture it, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And
I'm just here. Tanjira, I'm here for the engagement and the hot topics. Hey, Tanjira, I appreciate you for being here for that. I do appreciate you. But yeah, Garland, to that point, like if we don't have it in there, and we're saying, hey, we need, and they say, well, prove it. You don't even have the scans you need to prove it. Is that part of the issue, right?
Yeah, that's part of the issue. Like you just said it a few minutes ago about point of use, right? If they don't do point of use, what we got to do? We got to do an extended soak, and we got to do all of this other stuff. I mean, you can sit in anybody's decontam all day, and you're going to see it. Quite a few case cards come down with instruments ain't pre-cleaned.
Right.
As they call them, right? So again, to your point, how many people's actually capturing it? Yes, I've seen a few in the chat say, we do. I applaud you. But we need everybody to be there where you are, right? We need everybody to be on that same hype, as they call it, right? Whereas, okay, this is what we're doing. So because a lot of these places, a lot of these physicians, a lot of these different areas, a lot of these leaders, they know each other. They gonna call another one. Hey, do you do this in your facility? They gonna say, no, we don't do that. And then be like, okay, well, fine. If you don't do it, then we're not gonna do it. Right? Some people base their practice on what somebody else is doing or what somebody else is not doing.
Right.
And therein lies another.
Again, that's part of us, though, as leaders. Yes, we have a network. We can reach out to each other and have these conversations. But then if we're not being truthful with each other and we're not trying to improve, then what is this networking doing? Like, I'm not telling you what you're doing is wrong, but I say, hey, this is a next level of this, and this. And these are things you can look up. These are not things that just from a kind of perspective. These are things that we can say, these are proven facts, whether I'm Lean Six Sigma or not. These are things that can happen to help your departments. If we're using our networks the right way, you're right. Call 2 or 3 managers and say, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
How do you handle this? But some of us won't even call and network because I'm right. I'm right. I'm right.
Yeah. And it's a humility thing, right? It's, again, like I said earlier, I've been around a long time, but I don't know everything, right? None of us know everything, right? And so, but that's where just being humble, like, Kenneth, hey, let me ask you a question. How you go about doing this? Do you do this? You might be like, no, I don't know what you doing. but that's me reaching out to find out what better I can do, right? Because we can all do better in some aspect in our job, especially when we're talking about metrics that matter, right? We can all do something better, and we'll never know what else we can add if we don't talk about it.
Because it's never a bad thing to have extra things in your toolkit, right? It's never a bad thing to say, I want to improve. Let me see what other people are doing. Mm-hmm. Like I saw Tanjira, and I use her as an example. She said, no, for real, we capture everything. So now I can say they have a system that works. Hey, Tanjira, how did y'all do ABC?
Right.
Use your network to your advantage. Tanjira, I'm sorry if you get a whole lot of calls. It's my fault. I apologize. But
because I was going to call.
For somebody that's doing stuff right and is not ashamed to, or they are willing to help us in those aspects, those are the people you lean on. Family, Garland, I'll ask the question because I always ask everybody that comes on. If you had to leave, if you had to talk or say a profound statement to that new leader or that person who wants to improve their department, who's looking at ways to improve those metrics, who's looking at implementing change, what would you say to them in this moment about how to get there?
I would say first, know and fully understand the end goal that you're trying to reach. Because if you don't know the end goal of where you're trying to go, you're going to get lost. Even if you deviate or if you turn a few corners, right? You still know where the end goal is. So if you know your end goal, then you can build around it and you can get to it despite any barrier.
Okay. Family. Today we talked about how do we prove SPD's value through the metrics. Are we capturing the right metrics? Do we even have something in place for those metrics? I had Garland here. He dropped a couple of jewels and he's been in here letting us know that what we're seeing and what we're trying to accomplish has to have a roadmap to get there. Are we on the right path to do what we need to do? And are we capturing the right thing? Hey, Garland, Tandrea said, call her. She got you. So that is what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, nobody's perfect in this space. We all have room to make some improvements, but this is where it starts with these type of conversations. If you need to have some help, I know Garland said you can reach out to him. Tandrea said you can reach out to her. If you need to connect with somebody, reach out. There's nothing wrong with reaching out for help if you need to get yourself there to make sure that we are capturing the right things. Those metrics matter. Having that scan points matter because when it's time to reveal that productivity to your C-suite, are you going to have enough data there to say, I need that extra FTE? Are you going to have that conversation with the OR and those people that say, oh, you have too many people down there because we only had this many cases today? Do you have the data to prove them wrong? That is what this conversation was about. That is what we were trying to convey today. And I hope we did that for you. Get your CE. Make sure that you go in, take the CE, take it with you, and reach out to the people necessary to make sure if you want to have these extended conversations, let's do that. But hey, it's been a time to talk. I'm your favorite uncle, cousin, nephew. I'll see y'all next week in the same place, same time. Let's talk about it. I thank y'all all for being here. I'll see y'all next week. Thank you, Garland.
Right on, man.
Trusted equipment, backed by service. Safer patient outcomes begin with the right equipment and the right partner behind it. That's why we created the MVP program, our commitment to being your most valuable partner in every procedure. When you start using IMP patient protective pads or SteriBump, our sterile surgical bump, you unlock more than just great products. You gain discounted repairs to keep costs down, free loaner equipment to keep you up and running, product discounts to maximize your investment, a 1-year new product warranty, and the exceptional service and support you've come to rely on, delivered by a team that's with you every step of the way. It's more than just a service plan. It's our commitment to stand behind you with best-in-class support, because reliable equipment means safer outcomes for your patients. That's the MVP standard. It's service when you need it, support that's seamless, and protection that's built in so you can focus on what matters most, patient safety. Talk to your IMP representative or visit impmedical.com/MVP to become an MVP today. Because when you invest in IMP, we invest in you.